On this episode of the podcast, I have with me John Wilson. He is Director of Analytics at Brookdale. We're going to be talking about the digital transformation that's been facilitated by his team and the impact it's had on Brookdale. We're going to be talking about the Center of Excellence that John has worked on. We're going to understand what's gone into that, what that is actually doing, how it's affecting speed and quality. And also talked about how important analytics has become for the business and how John has been steering the company towards deeper analytics usage. And I'm excited to have you on, John. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So I guess two things I always like to start off with. One is to understand, at high level, what does Brookdale do? And then Director of Analytics, just what falls on your plate, and we'll kick it off.
Certainly. Brookdale Senior Living is the nation's leader in senior housing. We own and operate almost 700 communities in over 40 states. And from an analytics standpoint, that means serving the whole enterprise from the leaders in the communities all the way up to the CEO.
Awesome. And I guess, analytics means lots of things, a lot of different companies. I guess what falls on your plate as the Director of Analytics?
We own the Tableau application, which is unique in that we are on a financial team. We also operate a more bespoke data modeling team that handles more ad hoc data focused requests.
Awesome. Yeah, certainly you guys have a big infrastructure there to deal with when it comes to the senior living space, and obviously lots of data points needed to make decisions. Maybe talk about at a high level, just as a context of what the team looks like how big is the analytics team? And then maybe we'll start from there, because I guess the real question I'd like to understand is, what digital transformation looked like before you started and kind of where we're at now. But I guess, how big is the current team?
My current team is 6 people, 3 Tableau focused manager and analysts, and 3 more SQL oriented analysts. That means we take in requests from our corporate internal customers to build out new reports or new dashboards or add some sort of insight to an existing process to help the field make better decisions.
Awesome. I guess the when you first started, and I know you've been at Brookdale for 4 years plus now. When you first started, what did the analytics team look like? And I guess when you inherited it, what was your mandate to? Obviously, you want to help with the digital transformation process. You're trying to help, bring more core capabilities. But what did the team look like when you first started?
Yeah, it was more of a federated model. There were analysts in each department across the organization, even at some of our larger communities. But then the company went through sort of a refocusing, not just in terms of analytics, but also just business strategy. And we focused more into a center of excellence model, which meant building out a knowledge base and a more self-service style kind of stack of resources for anyone to use, but we kind of own and operate. There are still a few sort of satellite groups, but it's refocused much more into a kind of a hub and spoke model.
I guess, that'd be interesting to talk about, how that transition, restructuring the team. But I guess you mentioned Center of Excellence, and I guess to start out with, what does that exactly mean? And what is the mandate? What does that, actually entail for the company?
Yeah, it means we're sort of like the internal consultants, for business related data questions. If the CEO has a question about how some new program or external factor affects one of our KPIs, for example, like occupancy or move-ins, then we would do the work to blend those data sets, stage them in a table or in a report, and deliver the results to the executive team in kind of whatever package they want. But because we have the experience, the kind of more factory style model, we have templates already set up for delivering those kinds of reports. We have, like I mentioned, we have resources for people across the corporate office to serve themselves, other kind of details about different KPIs and research, kind of a variety of dashboards in our Tableau environment. But again, because it's like this, COE is really they're the internal experts for Tableau. We also have this more bespoke request intake system that can handle more of the challenging or more of the technical questions that require adding new fields to tables or building out ETLs. And as a result of all of this, both the factory-like model and the more artisanal kind of approach, we are able to make faster decisions about how to answer questions and therefore enable the executive team or all the way down to the field to make better decisions with better insights.
I guess when you're kind of looking at, the hub and spoke model, you're more internal consultants and, you're obviously tasked with different priorities. How does the team handle different priorities? Obviously, everyone wants their analytics delivered. Everyone thinks, they need to answer the business question immediately. So how does the team kind of prioritize that, the kind of the requests that come in and what gets tackled, next?
Yeah, that's a great question. We follow a sort of a sprint light and agile light format where we use Jira and Confluence to track and maintain or manage some of our projects, so that with routine sort of releases basically of each sprint, we stay on top of projects. Don't let any one take up too much space. So that by breaking big ones down into smaller action items, that's one way that helps. We can get to the next project faster. But in terms of prioritization, it matters, obviously, who's requesting it, but more importantly, as a publicly traded company, that matters more when at quarter end or at month end. But in general, it's around there's good communication from the executive team around what the business goals are. And so if we know that occupancy is underperforming in a certain region, we can make sure to focus on delivering the tools or insights that the team in that region needs to excel.
I guess when you're kind of looking at that and balancing speed and quality, difficult game, because obviously quality and analytics people are making multi-million-dollar decisions based on the reporting, the speed. You have to be careful of how fast. We know sometimes the plumbing takes longer than the reporting and people don't want to wait. How do you tackle the question of, I want reporting yesterday, but then it's like, well, oh, hold on. The plumbing's not done. We got to go back and take care of some moving data and doing some data engineering and having people realize that it could be a little bit slower.
Yeah, it requires a lot of coaching. We really focus on hiring the right people that have that kind of coaching, consultative mindset, who, when, another executive may be grilling them about needing some data, the team member can explain the challenges clearly, can empathize, and even instruct on how that individual may be able to, serve themselves whatever they need more quickly, rather than needing something exactly what they were looking for. While we continue to, work with IT and applications and advanced analytics to solve the underlying problem that would improve the whole process down the road.
No, and that's always the balance of that, the short term and the long term wins that you got to deliver. I guess from the standpoint of, you're still growing digital transformations occurring. You guys are always probably evaluating tools, technologies that can come in. When you guys are kind of sitting there and evaluating what could come in and benefit the company without obviously requiring the whole team to, reskill or be upskilled to something new, how much of that goes into, your decision making?
Credit to our IT partners. They do a terrific job of asking for feedback at every step of the way, whether it's when they're doing some initial research about build or buy, maybe when they're in the middle of a deployment, or at the end when they're fleshing out kind of the performance layer, so to speak. And that kind of coordination, it just is absolutely critical. And it's one thing that, the field, or what may not be totally obvious to a resident in an independent living in Florida, actually requires a lot of coordination and communication. And that's one of the things that Brookdale does so well, is gain those kind of economies of scale through these partnerships in the corporate side.
Interesting. I mean, I guess as you guys are finding more data and you're pulling in more data, as you're starting to talk to business and kind of drive those conversations of what's possible, how careful do you have to be not to overpromise? Because obviously, once you paint the picture of the art of the possible with analytics, then the brainstorming happens and you're barraged with all these other ideas. You're like, well, we're not going to be able to deliver those. We don't have the data. We can't. It's just something out of reach. How much of that is your day and your week?
Oh, it's every day. But if you can deliver accurate results,
sure,
at a reasonable timeline, you build a credibility and trust that you know what you're doing. And that's how you can push back on those kinds of, challenges, by having that, capital, so to speak, in the bank already.
Absolutely. I think as you guys are consultants, that internal trusted partner title, I think that becomes important, because when John says, hey, we can deliver this and we're confident, I think that puts the trust in, the digital transformation. Because some people are still like, hey, like you mentioned, it was the hub and spoke model is new. So there's still pockets of analysts that, an executive could reach out to and, hey, can you help me with this reporting? And, they build something quick and dirty, local, and all of a sudden it becomes, entrenched, and, trying to dislodge that. It's a big problem itself.
Right. That's a great example, of the kind of thing that we did during COVID, or addressing some labor shortages, for example. We need to act fast. Our team comes in, builds out a quick and dirty model, and at the same time, we work with IT and other partners to move it into production. The trick is having the right people in place that know how to set something up, even if it is done quickly, or a rough draft. It's set up so that it can be moved to production seamlessly.
Yeah, I guess when you're kind of looking at your roadmap and kind of what the work is that you're trying to balance and kind of evaluate, how often do you look at the roadmap and kind of reprioritize? And I guess the other question would be is like, how much of that roadmap is, and I wasn't going to say ad hoc, because I'm sure there's a roadmap, but obviously requests that come up, causes you to refocus your energies. But like, how hard is it, given, business analytics is very dynamic, needs change constantly for what the business needs to operate. So how does that roadmap look for you?
Yeah, I'd say there are sort of three elements to it. One is obviously, technical. What tools do we have now? What applications, and what are their various, stages of development along the technical maturity curve? What's the upgrade cycle, or so on. There's a business element, obviously, where based on competition or different strategic kind of approaches, you may want to apply certain tools more than others, or build one other some way versus another. For example, build out an internal CRM rather than going with Salesforce or something like that. So those kinds of choices depend on the business strategy. But finally, the roadmap really depends, at the crux of it is the people, having the people that know the legacy systems and the challenges when you're working at an organization as large and has as many years under its belt as Brookdale has, going through different stages. You need people that know the circumstances around different tools and the historical business reasons for those choices. So having the technology and the strategy and the people all in place, and then just a routine for reviewing the roadmap.
Absolutely. And I guess as you're kind of, forecasting, still early 22, I mean, when you're looking forward and you're trying to, balance your team's, growth and your needs, like at some point, given the hiring challenges that everyone has in technology, it's always, kind of prevalent. Do you start forecasting ahead going, hey, my team's going to need this kind of skill set. I need to, start that process earlier just because of how challenging the environment is?
Yeah, absolutely. And that requires a lot of coordination among teams, not being afraid to transfer somebody from, say, finance into an IT role so that we don't lose their knowledge, from their background, but they can also continue to grow and develop in their own right.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because I think what you're focused on right now is, making sure the business has that, the trust in the data. Obviously, you're trying to deliver quickly. And sometimes those kind of, it's a lot of friction in terms of making sure they go hand in hand. And, that communication to the executive team, to other business teams is, it's a challenge. Like it's because people need to go to 100 miles an hour. And it's like, well, one wrong decimal and you guys are going to make some bad decisions. And that in itself is sometimes the hardest of all the conversations.
Yeah, but it all comes down to the people. Brookdale is a people business. We are in the service of our residents. And if we can't directly help them, then we're helping the people that do in analytics and through our services. And that's the most rewarding part of it all. It's fun to solve puzzles for a living. It's fun to work on these big strategic kind of technical or business challenges. But at the end of the day, you're doing it for a purpose and ultimately saving lives or improving those lives of our fathers and mothers and uncles and aunts and grandparents that are in such a fragile state of their life, and we help them thrive in it. But there's no mission without the margin. And that's where we come in and help make those better decisions to make all those things possible.
Absolutely. No, I mean, the mission of the company is phenomenal. I mean, when you look at missions and you look at what you could be doing, I mean, this is something that every parent, every child goes through. And I think it's a mission that probably resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. If someone wants to reach out to you and ask you anything about what you talked about on the podcast, is LinkedIn a good place to get a hold of you? Do you have a preferred avenue somebody can do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. You can either add me with a note, or I am on Twitter too. You can reach out to me at John A. Wilson TN or John Armistead Wilson on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. We'll put those links in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Again, thank you for being on. I think this was very interesting.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
Absolutely. That's it for this episode. We'll be back yet. Different guests, different topic. I always ask for two things. One, if the episode's interesting, please share it. That's how we've been growing. And I can't thank everyone that does that enough. And secondly, if you want to talk about, there's a specific topic you want me to discuss, I'll do my best to find a guest. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Let me know. Until next time. Goodbye.